So for this drill, we're going to be practicing just doing a regular anti-air. So now I usually do a lot of these just reactionary drills by doing like a recording 1. I just like tap forward and stop. Recording 2, walk backwards. Recording 3, walk backwards and stop. Recording 4, you do like a backboard or something like that. Really, really minor, like less than 0.5 or 0.6 seconds every time. And then recording 5, jump with a proper attack. So we're going to play like this. We're going to keep his spacing, and when he jumps, we're going to take whatever anti-air we're here to practice with. Alright, so the next one that we're going to practice for the vital importance of... So we're going to add on to that, so that we still have something to pay attention to, but we're going to take one of these recording slots. I'm going to input a dash-up throw instead. So we're still going to play the same way. But we're going to tech these dash-up throws. So we're going to focus on the dash-up and hover over the throw tech. And then when we see the move, we're not really focusing on like approaching or anything like that. We're just holding our spacings, and then we hit the correct anti-air button when it's necessary. See, now one of the reasons why this is incredibly important to do is because a lot of the times, especially against, let's say that your opponent's playstyle is like, I don't know, like they either do fireballs or they dash up and throw. So if we're in this range, it's like I can't poke into his range because I just keep getting hit by fireballs, so I can't really stop the dash up very well, which means I'm going to be in this range but blocking a lot, and that leaves me open to getting thrown, obviously. So this is a very common tactic a lot of players will do with a lot of characters that can do this way. So obviously, if an opponent dashes up and throws you, you know, the first rule of defense is you don't want to be in the situation in the first place. If you're in a guessing situation, so let's take this for example. Let's do that instead. So we're going to have all these 3 active. So there, it's a guess. He dashed up and I throw teched, but he did a move that goes over throw techs. So when he dashes up on me and I haven't checked his dash, like that, so that, you want to stop him from dashing up on you in the first place, obviously to not be in the guessing situation. But at the end of the day, an opponent is more likely to dash up and throw you than they are to dash up and try to bait your throw, because the risk is lower, and the value of them doing it, they're more likely to hit it because they're more likely to catch you off guard in a situation where you're not ready to tech at all, just caught by surprise. Or perhaps, see, I tried to down jab him, so I reacted to his dash and hit crouch jab, but it wasn't in time, and the throw beat me out. That'll happen a lot too if you're looking to stop the dashes with just buttons. So the important thing is that, like, a lot of new players, a lot of beginner players, or to intermediate level, will not like to tech dash-up throws in these situations in neutral, because they feel like their solution to the dash-up throws should be to not be there in the first place, should be to not be in the situation, should be to stop the dash like that. But if you're constantly throwing out limbs in this space, that's not going to be good against a lot of matchups, and you're never going to stop every single dash. That's absurd. The dashes are incredibly easy to get through, like right out the whiff of your normals or anything. See, he just dashed behind one of my normals there. There. I think I got punished on the recovery of my normal. So you're not going to stop every dash up. You know, it's just not going to happen. But you can take, when it happens, you can take the least risky option. And the generally best one to do is going to be throw tech most of the time. Now, obviously, it'll turn into a guessing game, and then you can make it less likely You know, you can reduce the likelihood that you'll get hit by mixing in different options that you can go for. So if, like, I can make him not want to go for heavy kicks here by doing jump backs instead, so that will escape the throw, and he can technically punish, I think, with forward medium punch, but anyways, I can escape the throw and punish it like that. And yeah, so I can rotate my options depending on what my opponent's doing defensively, and obviously as the defender, you're more likely to win in any given situation and on offense than the attacker is. You have more tools that will beat more of your opponent's tools. But you want to be ready to tech the dash-up throws. That's like, don't just accept them or try to beat them through other means. Teching the dash-up throw is generally the safest option to deal with dash-up throwing in neutral. And then when you have a solid read on the dash-up, you can interrupt it. So yeah, this is important training. You want to be ready to tech those dash-up throws, so practice, practice, practice this. Another thing that new players tend to get messed up on: the difference in spacing and the anti-airs between jumping and cross-ups. So if I try to anti-air at this spacing, you know, you have to be able to identify the right spacing. And if they enter into that spacing, you want to be prepared with the appropriate anti-air. So if they're not in an anti-air range that you can hit out with the one that you want to go for, you'll have to change it up. And you'll want to practice recognizing those ranges and such. So one of the other things is this low is meant to stop me from, like, walking backwards on reaction to him walking forwards. So, like so. I see he's walked forwards, and then about the time I would react, I get hit by the low. So that's what that's there for. For this one, we also want to be prepared, if we're focusing, to stop the slower dashes. So in this situation, I'm going to do like a little walk forwards, do like a little walk forward, walk back, do a jump, like jump heavy kick or whatever. Do that. And we want to beat his dash up. And anti-air his jumps. Alright, we also want to practice micro walking on these so he's doing different speeds of fireballs, and we're walk blocking and recognizing the spacing and trying not to walk into them. It's taking a little bit of space that we can. If we just blocked a light and then we have to block a faster heavy one, the space that we walk is going to be a bit slower. If we see that we just blocked a faster one, he's going to be less plus than he would have been if we blocked a slower one, so that means that we have more time to walk up. Alright, and this is the last one of the neutral related things that you can drill, but neutral jump into blocking, neutral jump into jumping attack, neutral jump into like sweep, I guess. Some players will do that. So neutral jumping can be pretty annoying because if they jump at you, obviously you can anti-air them, but if you're playing it around this range, what are you going to do about this? If you dash in on them or something, oh no, you're dashing into an attack, you know. Or if you try to, like, take your turn afterwards, move in on them, they recover immediately afterwards, so they can honestly do both. They can do jump into both actions, the attack and then the... So this entire space is just covered, and if they don't... So it can be pretty annoying to deal with, so... You want to time your actions. There's a couple of things you can do. Stay outside the spacing. And get the right timing. With something that will be far enough to reach them. Practice the timing so that you don't get hit by the jumping attack. And the spacing. For some characters, it's easier to deal with than others. Now, another thing is if your opponent neutral jumps constantly, you can inch your way a little bit further forwards, and you can get into the range when they go up. Give it a shot. Another option that you have at your disposal is you can take a guess on what they're going to do afterwards. So if you guess that they're going to come down with an attack button, you can just whiff do an anti-air, even at the range where it won't work if they empty jump, which can be risky, but it can be, you know, rewarding. I wouldn't whiff like a DP or anything, but you can, depending on the action, you can outspace it and then press like a really like light whiff, like a light or a medium button at the timing where they would do their jumping attack to catch like the hurt box of the jumping attack if they do one, and then if you get a flip out or something, you can deal with that, but you're still out of range for whatever nonsense they press on an empty jump. Or you can just give them some space. You don't have to challenge it if you don't want to necessarily. I mean, in some situations, if you're inching closer to them, you can go for an air-to-air. Depending on the character, some characters are better at this than others. But that's probably going to be your furthest move that you can do to stop them, but that can be beaten if they predict it, so you can't go to that well all the time. So the most safest option is generally to take your turn and outspace it with something, but again, this can be harder with some characters than with others. And then once you condition them to stay blocking, they're conditioned to not press buttons against it. Now, on defensive situations, you'll obviously want to, like I already talked about, with knowing spacing, sometimes you don't have the luxury of being able to anti-air in a given situation, so sometimes you'll have to just recognize the spacing and block it accordingly. Now, your best tool against jump-ins in a macro sense is always going to be your own spacing. Like, if you taunt them to jumping at a cross-up angle, if the opponent jumps cross-up a lot, your best tool is to get into their jump range and then jump and then move backwards so that they mess up their jump spacing. So you can create situations where you clearly have to recognize and then guess what the mix-up will be. So create those scenarios and make them look identical to each other. And then react to the minor differences. See how far they walk forwards, or... No. And in the same respect, you can also do something like this, where let yourself get hit by the first hit, neutral get up, and then try to block both the overhead jump in and the empty low. So right before they land, you want to switch your blocking from overhead to low. Like so. Now, some players on occasion will go for goofy stuff like so cross up, or empty jump throw. Or empty jump low. So in these situations, there's not really necessarily a need to even guess on the empty low. You can just hit a button right there, and if you block the jump in, you'll block it. If you get the timing right, you'll beat whatever shenanigans they end up doing. You'll also want to practice blocking overheads. And of course, punishing them. You'll want to practice a situation I already recommended practicing. So, delay teching in all sorts of situations, block the meaties, tech the throws, that kind of thing. Similarly, you'll want to practice your delay buttons as well. So we're going to get hit by this, neutral tech, and instead of throw teching, he's not necessarily in our range, so we're going to delay button instead. So we're blocking, we're holding straight back, and every time he goes for a walk-up throw, so every time. So we're blocking that because it's an immediate frame trap, and when he goes for a walk-up into some shenanigans, we're catching him with that delayed button. And of course, in the same situations and similar situations, we can also implement a delay jump. You can technically input a delay backdash, but because it requires a more complex input, it's generally much harder to do. These different delay options, you can practice the timing for delay button, delay tech, and delay jump back, or maybe delay backdash if you feel like trying that out. You can also do delay V-shift, but that's more like you have to be more confident as to when you're going to hit it and not necessarily on a delay. But yeah, you can test those things out, and they'll be very useful, and those are your main defensive tools in the majority of situations. It's just you'll be rotating between those couple of options depending on the situation, the matchup, and whatnot. So in these situations, there's a lot of block strings that anything the opponent does, the opponent wants to get in on you, so they want to move forward. So their primary tools to stop that are going for lows to stop you from walking backwards or anything. So if I just hold straight back, he can hit me with this low. Maybe he'll go for a sweep or something. He doesn't have great options as Falk, but in a lot of situations, a backdash will get you out of certain situations, either through an air flip out, like I already talked about, or just the actual move itself will just travel really, really far. And each character's backdash is also different. Some of them move more quickly than others. I think Karen's goes really far, but I feel like it's slow in the startup. Let me pick a different character. So, classic example, if I were to block this, I can't jump back, can't walk back. It's a frame trap, but I can backdash. So, knowledge of the strings will let you escape a lot of the opponent's, anything that the opponent can do. There are some situations where the opponent has basically nothing they can do to beat your backdashing in certain situations. So, backdashing at certain range of, plus frames, or certain block strings, or knowing when the opponent has genuinely no options to stop your backdash, Backdash is a great knowledge check you can use to escape tons of offensive situations and get back to neutral. So obviously you'll want to practice and maybe mix it in. So you can do tests like this. Or instead of that, do something like that. So all these different, actually for the last one I'll do throw. Let's do that. So we're gonna turn all this on, and we're gonna try to so that's what we're looking for. We're looking for crouch light punch into crouch medium punch, and we're going to try to react to that. And then backdash. Like so. It's harder than you think to get it frame perfect. There we go. So yeah, that's something you definitely want to be practicing. Mix it in with all the other defensive things. You can mix and match a lot of these different trials so that you can focus on all the things at once, or any mixture of them. And you know, because it'll be awkward at first, but it's once you practice it, you can do it. You can do it consistently. So practicing different combinations and stuff will make you more prepared. It will give you those tools. It'll be more important. In a similar sense, instead of let's do is that my walk up throw one? Yeah. So instead of that, let's do cross up jump in. So if I activate all these, I'm going to backdash, just like I said I would. And then anti-air the jump in. I keep getting hit. I keep missing out. There we go. I messed up. Didn't get it fast enough. There we go. But another thing that you can do this with to practice is you can just sit here without backdashing, and you can try to deal with the cross-up jump in instead, while dealing with all the delay taking and such. Like so. There we go. Autocorrect TP. Okay. So yeah, you can practice those situations as well, so you can focus on the cross-up jump-in harassment or constant jump-in harassment. A lot of lower-ranked players will probably do to you early on. Yeah. Now, a lot of people will jump at you in the corner. One of the reasons is that because you... A couple reasons. You can't control your backwards spacing anymore, which means that it'll throw off your instinctive judgment of when they are. So it's like, if an opponent jumps at you at this range, you can block it without blocking cross-up, you know, like here. So there. You can block this easily. You see it, and you just hold backwards, and because you move that space backwards, you don't have to block it cross-up. But that spacing will not work if you do the same situation in the corner, because you won't be able to. So your instinctive, like, you're eyeballing it will mess you up sometimes unless you specifically practice corner cross-up situations and mid-screen cross-up situations. So it's much easier for them to get to the cross-up in the corner, which is why they'll do it a lot of times. Like here, in mid-screen, I would just hold straight back, and I would block this. But in the corner, it'll trick you, and you have to block it cross-up. But another reasons why they'll jump at you in the corner is because your anti-air options are much more limited, you know? That's not going to work. So you have to figure out what your character can do. And that'll give you the right idea of how best to approach a situation. Urian has a pretty good thing that hits above his head. So he has this option. Some characters you might have like invincible moves, maybe you might want to try. Depends on where the hitbox is, you just have to test out and see what works in the corner. Now, another important practice on defense and in neutral situations, you also want to practice reacting to, or first you want to lab and figure out what you can and cannot V-reversal and knock down. So, if he does like a crouching medium punch, I don't know if I can V-reversal that. No, he can block in time. So we're looking for buttons that if we see it and block it, we can get a guaranteed V-reversal on. And then on defensive situations, if that's how we're willing to spend our resources or anything like that, we look for those things and react to them, and then V-reversal accordingly. So you can set up different offensive sequences. And we can look for the... So I can V-reversal that. And yeah, you'll just want to practice doing that. You can do this in the midst of other things, because depending on how long your character's V-reversal is, or if it's a knockdown one at all, you know, maybe if you're playing against Abigail, you're looking for one of his moves that he can reversal. So let's do it against, like, let's do it against Falk, for instance. We're playing neutral with Falk. There are certain things that we want to do to get a knockdown with our reversal, but we also want to be playing neutral, so we want to be aware of other things that can happen. So with Falk, we're going to center, turn off all this. So we're going to turn all this on. We're going to anti-air. And when we get this, we're going to get a knockdown. So, as any character, we have the obvious things we want to practice. We want to practice our combos. Knowing the ranges, knowing what we can and can't get off of stuff. And we want to practice our setups. And meaties and such. We want to practice our doing our block strings and confirming into a combo, like so. We'll also want to practice normal and random counter hit, so we can figure out which combos to go for. So counter hit staying strong off of this, maybe we can go for a back fierce. We recognize the counter hit. See, this one's a little bit trickier to do, because we want to normally go for this if there's no counter hit. But we want to recognize a standing medium punch hits counter hit and go for the back fierce to be, you know, totally optimal. But we can just do that on counter hit too. But something you definitely want to test a lot is you want to test, you know, when you're approaching the opponent, and you can do this a couple of ways. Like, you can do this, just have the opponent randomly walking and then approach him, and then do, like, any action, and then judge your spacing. See, this is the important thing, is that because each character has, like, different block strings. So if you're point blank, you can do all sorts of different block strings. But for different ranges, like, say if I'm right here, what's my biggest threat to the opponent right now? Well, the only thing that'll catch him if he mashes buttons here and get a knockdown is if I do that. So in different ranges, you know, if I, like, poke him here, how can I create a sequence of buttons, like a block string that I can hit confirm? What's the furthest range thing that I can hit confirm to get a knockdown? Well, we'll have to see what the furthest range thing is. So point blank, I can obviously get whatever my combos are. Further away, what's my furthest thing? So if I'm like this distance away, I can get that into that. Anytime I'm in range for standing medium punch, I can get light kick afterwards. What if I'm not in range for standing medium punch? I can get jab, light kick. So if I do, okay, that will reach slightly further than anything starting with medium punch. What about, crouch strong? No, it doesn't quite look like it. Nope, doesn't say like it. So jab, light kick is still the furthest that we have right now. We can do this, and that will crush counter on counter hit. So we have, like, crush counter moves that we can hit confirm from further away, but in terms of an actual block string, like a sequence of buttons that puts them in a block stun, seems like that's our furthest. So if we are at, like, applying pressure in any situation, we have to recognize, like, okay, if I want to pull the trigger on a block string right now, what is the longest range block string I can do that I can get something on counter hit? And if I'm not even in that range, maybe I should just go for something else. So that's a block string that will get a knockdown on counter hit. So sometimes it's the furthest thing we can get. Like if we're not in range to do jab, light kick, sometimes we just got to do light kick into that if we think that the opponent might press a button there. So anytime we're applying pressure or doing anything, we have to, like, recognize the spacing and then see what the furthest option we have is, and, you know, maybe we want to be safer than, and not assume we're closer than we are, but yeah, we want to be able to have options, our furthest range options, and identify those and use those when pressure. Because when you're doing pressure, when you're staggering your attacks, you know, like you're trying to get into throw range, you're not just going to do block strings the whole time. You're going to do, like, oh, walk up, maybe put some gaps in, like here, so you can move forwards a little bit extra. At any point that you're moving forwards, if you're not immediately still in range for medium punch, you need to have something else to hit them with. So anytime you're pressuring, every button you do is going to push you further back. You need to know how far back you're going to be and which block string you need to go for if you want to pull the trigger on a frame trap or something. So recognizing your spacing and having block strings for each distance away from the opponent that you can hit confirm into a combo, into a knockdown or something, is very important. Another thing you want to practice other than just straightforward block strings is you want to practice micro delays, because like I said, a core defensive option most people are going to use is a delay button. So you want to have something, you want to have specifically practice the timings that will beat delay buttons. Now, it's obviously not going to be 100% precise all the time, but, like, you want to have, like, a little micro delay. Now, when you're applying pressure to the opponent, the smaller the gap that you give them, see if you're like, oh, this on block, and then, walk around, this on block or something. You're giving them big gaps, which means you're giving them a lot of space to do something wildly different. Whereas if you do, like, say, crouch medium punch, stand heavy punch, that's technically not like a true frame trap, but there is a limited gap between it, so it drastically limits the number of things he can potentially do. Now, when we apply micro gaps to our frame traps, a similar mentality applies. The best way to control your opponent is to limit their options, and the best way to limit their options is to keep your gaps very small, you know? So if you're playing an opponent that you feel you need to limit the options of, like a more unpredictable opponent or something, you don't feel comfortable giving them a big gap or anything that they might do something weird with, we want to keep our gaps as very, very small when we're doing like little micro walks and stuff, so that there's less potential things our opponent can do that can take advantage of that gap. So even if we do a gap, like a button, delay walk button or something, a micro gap, he still can't do like a full-on, like a fireball or something weird, like he can take advantage of this with if we give him a gap to poke out of, but he can't poke out of it with anything or do anything, if we keep it small. So that's what we want to practice, and we can practice this by recording him a guard recovery action. Let's do his 3-framer, and then we'll give him replay interval settings. We'll put it at like 4 frames back. So, yes? Oh, on. So after 4 frames, so right now, unfortunately, he won't keep blocking, but so long as it doesn't say counter hit, that means that if you were playing against a real opponent who was delaying their buttons, they would block it. So that would be a block against a real player. So we want to look for micro delays. And when we understand our micro delays, we also understand the little distance that we can move forward. So maybe I can't get this like crouching heavy punch from here, or standing medium punch from there, but if I add a micro delay or something, a little bit of a walk up, perhaps I can get into range. I mean, depends on your character's walk speed and how big of a gap you're going for, but yeah. So you practice those micro delay block strings and such, and beating their delay buttons like that. There's other things you can do as well, like outspacing their actions. That's going to be a huge part of beating delay buttons, but that's not what we're here to practice right now. This is going to be important in both offensive and defensive situations, but mostly for offense. So sometimes characters with these like big ass, like long-reaching, like Sakura, Ken, Ed, they might go for an offensive situation where they'll do like something like that. So if you're in this throw situation, see, I expected like a throw, but then they neutral jump, and it beats my throw tech. So when they do that, very similar to a shimmy, you can escape through it through several options, but a lot of players, even if they commit to not throw teching, they won't be ready to anti-air it, and so this is just something you have to focus on, especially to fight these particular characters that are especially good at doing this. You gotta take your turn back. But another thing to be ready for on offense and to practice a lot of the time, record wake-up settings. Wake up number 1, do nothing. Wake up number 2, neutral jump. I'll set him to guard all, wake up all. So when the opponent neutral jumps on your normal throws, if they just hold up, when they get up, you gotta be ready for that anti-air. And if they backdash, you should probably be ready for that too. So let's do, so there's a couple of things they could do that would beat your normal throw. They could do backdash, jump, V-shift, all of which are annoying options. So let's like turn them all on. Oh, did I do guard recovery? So if they backdash, let's try to do crouch light kick if they V-shift, we'll try to do something. Oh, wrong thing. So that would have beaten anything that he did there. Okay, got him. Anti-aired him. Beat him. Threw him. No. Oh, that's not in time? Would have figured that would be in time. Alright, so let's just stick to crouch leg kick for now until we lab out some better punishers. And yeah, just practice doing that. So if the opponent tends to do like wake up reversals, if you take a meaty or something, you're gonna get beaten. But if you just sit there, you're gonna get back thrown, you know, because they're going to do a delay tech most of the time. So if that happens, if there's like say they put like a 4-frame gap or something on it, it's going to look like this. If you wait for the DP. So instead, we're going to try to block for the first little bit and then hit a delayed jab. So we're going to block on their wake up and then jab. Just like that. Now we're going to do the exact same thing and turn his reversal back on. Blocked it. Blocked it. Nope, too early. So yeah, if we practice doing that, now if we want to do something else, like maybe worry about him doing a wake up button as well, we can do a delay tech. So that'll beat him even if he does an immediate wake up throw, like he's currently set to do randomly. So we're blocking his DP, and we're teching his defensive throw action. And we would, if you were to mash buttons on wake up, that would be the same timing as his DP generally. So if you were to do like his 3-frame jab or something on wake up, if we block his DP, we're blocking his wake up button in any of these situations. So that's safe against that as well. So these are the techniques you want to definitely incorporate into your game plan to you know, threaten the opponent on offense, while still baiting out and punishing their DP tendencies and such, and making it difficult for them to use that as just a simple guessing game to escape your punishment. And with that, those are most of the things that I think are really important to do. The other things that I would recommend doing is record like a tech for an opponent and put like different amounts of delay or such on it, frame delay. And then figure out what your good shimmy tools are, and practice reacting to it. So I'll also turn on guard, do nothing. So you can press a button automatically in these situations, and then see that they did the throw tech, and then cancel it, like so. Or you can wait for their throw tech entirely and then press something really fast that you can react with. Like so. So yeah, that's most of the advice that I have for things to practice